Of course, houses are expensive. What did you expect? So if you live in the West, especially if you live in, let's say, anywhere in Europe, pretty much, in America, in Canada, in Australia, in New Zealand, you probably noticed that houses are sort of expensive. And if you're my age, you you probably don't have a house. If you're 10 years my senior, you probably still don't have a house. I think the average age at which people will actually buy their first homes is the highest it's ever been in some countries. And so, yeah, houses are not expensive. Sorry, they are expensive. They're not cheap. And there's some quite obvious reasons for that, which is why the title of this video is "What did you expect?" Like, if things have been going in a certain way where it's obvious that housing has been getting more expensive, it's a natural cause, and it's going to keep getting more expensive if we don't change any of the underlying causes. Now, one thing that I will say, and that you guys probably won't like, is that it isn't necessarily bad. Like, some of the things that cause houses to be more expensive, they're not necessarily bad. And so that's sort of the trade-off that you have to do. Like, some things that people really like actually do make their houses more expensive. And so they have to ask themselves, am I willing to have the overall housing in this country or in this area be more expensive in exchange for the benefits that are causing this? And your personal answer might differ from mine. I'm not here to give you my particular opinion, but I am here to say, well, why are houses expensive in the first place? And one thing that I think we should start with is parks. So when I moved to Australia, I was in shock because I've never seen so many parks in just overall the city, the suburbs. There's a gazillion parks. You can, like, I've lived long term in two different places here, both in Melbourne, both in North Melbourne, and you could literally just walk out of your house and have three different parks to go to. And when you have just one, it's because it's a huge park. Like, honestly, half of Australian suburbs are just green areas, and that is great. Like, I love living in that sort of environment. I love living here. It's definitely good for my quality of life, but the math don't lie. Like, the thing is, if you have more green spaces, there's no one living there unless they're homeless, and even then it's kind of hot and whatever, and there's cold climates, and they shouldn't be doing that. And so, to simplify, no one is living in those parks. And if those parks were turned into houses, or especially apartment buildings, then definitely they would be living in houses. So that's the first thing. And that's why I said it's not something that you have to change, but it's something that you have to recognize. The more parks you have, the more spread out your suburbs are, the more areas you say, no, we cannot construct here, we cannot build here, we cannot move in. That's fine. That's your prerogative, and that might even be a good thing, but it does tend to make housing more expensive. Out of the developed world, one of the cheapest cities is actually Tokyo. And if you ever been to Tokyo, you're going to notice that they even though they do have a lot of parks, it's not proportional, let's say, to for like it's one of the least green cities in the developed world. If you compare it to Rome, if you compare it to Melbourne, if you compare it to Paris, there's just less green area there. That's one thing. Second, which is my second point overall, verticalization. You're going to see that there's a lot of apartment buildings there, and here in Australia, it's pretty much a taboo. Like, you cannot have apartment buildings outside of the CBD. If you go to Melbourne, you're going to see a bunch of apartment buildings and skyscrapers, sort of, and like high buildings, but they die off really soon. Like, if you get up on like a high building in the CBD, what you're going to see is a stream of houses and parks. Pretty much anywhere outside the CBD, that's how it is. And that's not even how Europe is, actually. Like, there's a lot of, like, for example, Switzerland has a lot of apartments. Rome, you could get on the metro, you could go really far away, you could get out, and you're going to see there's still like a lot of apartment buildings, that kind of stuff. Tokyo, obviously, lots of apartment buildings, but especially the Anglosphere. So I'm talking here about specifically Canada and Australia and America. England a little less, but also England, Ireland, New Zealand, because those countries, well, not England, but all the other countries, were built on really sparsely populated lands that are actually really big. So Canada, Australia, and the US, people have the idea of, like, well, why build apartment buildings when I can just go like a little further and build a house of my own, which is great. Like it is in the culture, like American, Canadian, and Australian, especially cultures. They have this kind of built-in idea of owning a house, of having your own place, And when you have an apartment, it's just not the same because you're sharing a whole structure. Like it's not truly yours. You can't really do whatever you want. Neighbors are normally more of a problem. So it is part of the culture. And again, it's like parks. Like I love living in houses. My parents, they have a house back home, and I love going home and spending time with them. And I love like having a backyard, and I love having something that's like mine. And obviously, normally houses are bigger and they're more comfortable, and you can have a bit of a bigger party, for example, and you can make a little more noise because your neighbors, well, you have less neighbors to start with, and they're also a little further away from you. So having houses is great, having parks is great, but the fact is, if you have a lot of houses and if you have a lot of parks, your house prices are going to tend to be more expensive. Like it's a matter of mathematics. It's not possible for that not to be the case. So like I said, parks in and of themselves, not an absolute problem, but definitely a relative problem. Second, verticalization. And then third, going back to Japan, Japan out of the developed world has actually one of the lowest immigrant populations. And I don't want to say this, but it is kind of because they're racist. Maybe like it is at least because they're very proud of their culture. And for example, they have some immigration schemes for Japanese descendants. So like, your parents or great parents or something were Japanese, so it's easier for me to move to Japan. But the fact is, there's not a huge immigrant population in Japan as there is in Australia or in Canada or in England or wherever you were from. If you're watching this video, probably there's a high immigrant population there. And that is also a factor because one of the main factors that drive housing prices is you divide the number of people living in an area by the number of houses or housing units available in that area. And the more people move in, the higher prices tend to be. And the more people are forced to, let's say, share a room or share an apartment. For example, me, I have a private room, but in a house with 6 or 7 other people. So that has to be the case unless you're constantly building a heck lot of housing. If more people come, there will be less housing available and house prices will go up. And that's what I was talking about in the beginning of the video. Everybody hates high housing prices, but then everyone is in favor of parks. They're in favor of like big individual single family unit houses. They're in favor of immigration, and for obvious reasons, because parks are awesome and houses are awesome, and immigration overall, it's actually pretty good. And countries like Canada, Australia, and America, they were built on immigration. It's impossible to have a national identity in those countries specifically without the concept of immigration, because everyone is an immigrant in those countries. And so those are hard truths, but the fact is that those all influence housing costs. They just do. It's a fact. And then obviously the fourth thing that influences house prices overall is regulation. And regulation, it's a little easier for you to like scream about because overall the word regulation, bureaucracy, nobody likes that, right? It takes years to get a building permit, for example, or you pay so much taxes or land taxes or property taxes, or I don't know, you have to have this amount of insulation, or you have to have this building code that you have to follow, and etc. And that is a pain in the ass, and that does slow down construction. And the last houses, that's also the thing. Like some people think that you can just lower house prices or rent prices by just saying they're lower. But the fact is that they're high because more people want to live somewhere than realistically can. So pricing, it kind of works as a filter for people who cannot afford, and that is very mean, but it's true. And so the only possible solution to housing overall, as long as you have the same amount of people, of course, is to have more housing units, which is why having a lot of parks affect this, which is why having a lot of immigration affects it, because it increases the amount of people. Having a lot of not that many apartments affects it because the amount of housing units per land decreases. And those are just facts. And regulation, obviously, if it slows down the amount of housing construction, then you're building less houses than you're meant to, and then the population movements would require, and so obviously house prices also tend to go up. Now, one last point. The villain, normally when people talk about how expensive housing is, uh, as amazing as it sounds, investment and people who invest in properties, they're sort of seen as people like as the evil people in this situation. Oh, you have four properties, that is so evil. Or you're a real estate investor, that is so evil. But it's so funny because that actually helps solve the problem. Because like I said, the problem with housing prices is the amount of housing that there is. Period. That like it's you can't get around that. And the more money people pour into real estate, the more incentive there is for more real estate to be built. So obviously the person investing, they're not like, oh, I'm going to solve a humanitarian problem by building more houses. But what they're actually doing is they're getting their money that they worked for, however they got that money, and they're putting that into housing, which is where do they buy them from? They normally buy houses from someone who's building, or they build their own houses. And in either case, they're either directly building more housing units, or they're indirectly helping companies that build more housing units. And so the idea that you should get money off of real estates to lower housing prices is stupid, because the amount of people that want to live there are still going to want to live there. And so what normally happens with these sorts of artificial controls, like rent control, for example, is whomever already has a place to live is benefits from it, but then whomever doesn't have a place to live gets fucked over. And that's exactly what you see. So in places where rent control exists. You can talk about Berlin, New York. I think Vienna has some sort of rent control as well, but I'm not sure. Uh, if you already have rent, that's great, because you can pretty much they can't kick you off. The price gets cheaper every year due to inflation. It's awesome. Like some people in certain cities, they're paying pennies to live where they live, and that's great for them. But then, if you're an immigrant, if you want to move to that city, it sucks, because it's not that so much that you pay so much. It's more that you can't find somewhere to be. And in Dublin, Ireland, the same thing happens. I've got a lot of friends who ended up moving to Dublin for salaries or whatever. And what they tell me is, oh, yeah, I got a job in like a day, but I couldn't find a place to live in for like 1 or 2 months. And that is the reason. It's like you can't possibly solve a physical problem, which is a problem of people per house or people per housing unit, by restricting investment, or by uh, asking people to please not raise rent, or by asking people to be nice. That's not how it works. It's a mathematical equation, and the only solution is building more housing, either by, and that obviously no one's going to do that, but either by lowering the amount of parks that you have, or lowering the immigration, the rates that you have, or I don't know, lowering the regulations so that people can build more, or by being willing to live in more apartment buildings. But then people don't want to live in apartment buildings. They do want to have a park near their house. They do want to, I don't know, have a lot of immigration and be open and have a lot of people coming in. And it's like, it's obvious your house is going to be expensive because it's a nice place to live. It's a nice place to live, and it's all right. Like, maybe housing should be expensive. So this is the video. I've kind of fucked up a bit. It's been a bit true here and there and everywhere, but I hope you guys liked it, and I'll see you guys around.